Unique to this war is the number of children that are still in hospital that will not have anyone to go home to. We estimated that within the Palestinian health system, there's between 50 and 70 children who upon discharge have no one to return to. The boy on the top left, his parents died on the first night and his siblings passed away in the intensive care. He's now in the burns unit at Shifa. The girl at the bottom right is cared for by the gentleman behind her, who is the closest living relative and is her grandfather's brother. If you were a 6-year-old child in Gaza, this is the third war that you go through. The amount of deaths and the disability and deformity means that a lot of these children will have to suffer with grief of bereavement, disability and disformity, and the effects of the trauma of the war. The Israelis specifically targeted hospitals. 10 were damaged and were put out of use during the war, and 5 hospitals have now been completely destroyed. The picture on the bottom right is Al-Shifa Hospital, which was the only neuro-rehabilitation hospital in Gaza. The top left is a picture of the outpatients department in Shifa Hospital, which was targeted when I was there. And the top right is after the Israelis informed the Red Cross that they were going to target one of the new buildings in Shifa Hospital, which we had to open up before it was completely ready in order to offload some of the patients. Shifa Hospital was built before 1967. It has a capacity of 260 beds. Gaza City has a further hospital, which is the Ahli Hospital, which had 70 beds, and Al-Quds Hospital, which has 50 beds. Shifa had, during the war, around 600 inpatients. We had 3 patients per single room, and in some of the pediatric wards, we had 2 children per bed. Of the 10,000 injured, none of them had been allowed to exit Gaza during the war. All of the injuries had to be treated, and that led to the complete overwhelming of the health system. Displacing almost a third of the population was an intentional policy to try to induce internal collapse. Of the 470,000 people in a place of 1,800,000, what prevented collapse is the level of community cohesion that existed that I had never seen anywhere in my life. The majority of families have 5 to 6 families living in their houses. And this enabled society to absorb the major shock of this displacement. I came across many families who never had met or had very tenuous connections with those that they had taken in, but the answer was always that you're not going to turn anyone back in the middle of the night. 260 live in the schools that UNRWA runs, 260,000, and the rest were absorbed into society. At the time the ceasefire had been announced, UNRWA announced that 100,000 people had lost their homes and would need them rebuilt. 16,000 homes have been destroyed or irreparably damaged. These people will have to endure years before they're able to move back into their homes. There are still people in Gaza who have not had their homes rebuilt after the 2008 war. So, one of the areas in Rafah that was destroyed had been only delivered to the people whose houses that were destroyed in 2008. So the houses were only delivered 6 months ago. They've just been redestroyed again. So the 100,000 is just this war. What was left over from the 2008 is another issue. As I was leaving with the ICRC, they told me that they had tried to rent out the biggest bulldozer that they could find in Gaza and had discovered that there is no heavy lifting material capable at the moment of removing the rubble that exists, particularly in Shuja'iyya. The destruction of schools, UNRWA and governmental, in addition to the fact that the schools that UNRWA runs at the moment have around 200 to 240,000 people living in them, means that it's highly unlikely for the school year to return in a few weeks' time. The other amazing act that one has to pay tribute to is the bravery of the health workers in Gaza. My colleagues who lived and worked with, many of them had lost their homes, many of them had lost family members. On one day, in the middle of our operating list, our anesthetist found out that his brother and his nephews had been killed. And those who are still living in their house will have 5 or 6 families living with them. Any health system that receives 10,000 injured in the vicinity of a month and does not collapse is the result of dedication. When you add to that the fact that the health professionals working for the Ministry of Health in Gaza had not been paid for 4 months prior to the war. So these people had continued working and had been able to cater for the overwhelming majority of the injured. One is left with a sense of dismay that this happens again and again and again. Being back in Gaza, and unfortunately I seem to only return during the wars, the escalation in the severity and the ferocity of the attacks is an indication of the sense of impunity that seems to empower the Israelis war in, war out. Every war that has happened in Gaza, the Israelis have come out with the conclusion that they will be able to get away with even more the following time. They will be able to get away with announcing to the Red Cross that they're about to bomb hospitals. They will be able to get away with the fact that they are wiping out whole families. And they will be able to get away with the fact that they announce ceasefires to lull people into areas so that they can bomb them and meet what seemed to be a quota of 120 to 150 killed a day. The massacre of Al-Shifa market happened when people went to the market after the Israelis announced a unilateral ceasefire. The Israelis bombed the market, then stopped the shelling, allowed the ambulances to arrive, and then shelled the ambulances. And in a matter of 5 minutes, we received 240 injured and killed to Al-Shifa emergency room. So what can we do? One of the most insidious effects of the siege and the blockade on the health system in Gaza has been to deny health workers the ability to pursue higher postgraduate training. The system in Gaza relies now on the last generation that was able to leave and go to Europe to get trained in the UK, in Germany, in Ireland. That generation is now in the second half of their 50s. The generation that has come after have not been able to get this kind of training. The few of the junior doctors who I met who have any kind of postgraduate qualification have had to pay for it themselves, and it has been at Egyptian universities. Since it seems to be an intentional policy to prevent patients from leaving Gaza, it is incumbent upon us as people who want to make a difference to try to help break this cycle of degradation of skills that the siege has caused. And that's why we have come together today to try to launch this program between the Welfare Association and the AUBMC. What we are able to give at the AUBMC that others are not able to give is the kind of training and the kind of skills transfer that exists at the AUB. Within surgery, unfortunately, we have at our department an expertise in dealing with these kinds of wounds, from the war in Lebanon to the Syrian civil war and to the war in Iraq. And we are able to provide this kind of training to our colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The program is over. Ghassan will be around if people want to talk to him, but we are very happy to partner with the Welfare Association for this effort. I know that Ghassan and his team and other people have been working very hard also recently with Iraq to train people, to help them establish capacity building, also with the Syrians and receiving patients here. We are committed at AUBMC and AUB to help as much as we can. If we cannot go there, we want to train the people to be capable of helping their own citizens. Thank you all very much for coming.